If you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan or player thinking that things couldn't possibly get worse after that loss in Game 7 to the Florida Panthers, they somehow have. Because that loss to Florida was absolutely devastating, gut-wrenching. You could see that in the faces of all the Toronto players, fans, coaches, what have you. But as that franchise was down on the mat, reeling from the absolute groin kick that they just suffered, their foes, the Florida Panthers, just had to twist the knife a little bit extra. As a couple of Florida Panthers players, including their old nemesis Brad Marchand and coach Paul Maurice, have now come out to express their pity for the Toronto Maple Leafs players. I mean, just look at some of these quotes from Matthew Tkachuk. Quote, "If their team was not in Toronto dealing with all the crazy circus stuff outside of it, they'd be an unbelievable. I feel bad. We don't have to deal with that in Florida, and that's what makes me and my team so lucky. You almost use that against them, the pressure that these guys have to deal with day in and day out." Incredible. One of the Panthers' best players basically admitting that, yeah, we know these guys are so weak-minded, we could Jedi mind trick them into just collapsing on themselves. Panthers head coach Paul Maurice comes to the preemptive defense of the Leafs saying, quote, "You're gonna kill these guys and they don't deserve it. Puck went our way tonight. That's it." 6 times it went their way, but sure, Paul. And of course, there was Brad Marchand, says the Leafs fans unnecessarily, quote, "beat the pressure into their team, and how do you not feel that every day," referring to Leafs players. Then says the Leafs are going to be, quote, "crucified for their performance in this series," and reiterates his belief they were a different team than those he faced in the past. And I mean, this defense of the Leafs got so bad that reporters in other Canadian markets were checking in on their stars to make sure that they weren't feeling incredibly overwhelmed by the pressure. Leon Draisaitl was asked about playing in a Canadian market and says, quote, "I don't know if teams feel that they get under pressure with that, but we can handle it." Like, shocker of all shockers, a world-class player who has been to the Stanley Cup Finals just 1 year ago says, yeah, there's pressure, but we can handle that because we're adults and not little babies like the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, if you're a Leafs player, how do you not feel just incredibly insulted by all of these preemptive defenses by your opponents? All basically just coming out and say, the fans and reporters in Toronto are so mean and cruel. How could anybody succeed there? These poor Leafs players, how could they possibly win? Ignoring the fact that the Leafs have been one of the most successful teams in the NHL in the regular season. Apparently nobody in Ontario talks about hockey during the regular season, so there was no pressure on them then. But like, you're professional hockey players. This is the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's going to be pressure on you. There's pressure on every single team. And maybe that pressure is different in Toronto than it is in, say, New York or Pittsburgh, Washington, LA, Chicago. It's pressure. You're playing for a championship. Everybody is taking their game to another level. The fact of the matter is the Toronto Maple Leafs, for whatever reason, just have not been able to do that with this core four over the last decade or so. And look, maybe Tkachuk, Maurice, and Marchand all genuinely believe what they're saying, that the Toronto media and fans just put way too much pressure on their teams. What does it say about these Maple Leafs players? It says that they are a group who are incredibly talented, but just do not have that extra gear that will get them over the hump eventually. That's what all 3 of those men were saying. And while Tkachuk and Maurice may absolutely have not have meant it that way, Brad Marchand definitely did. I mean, given how he trolled Paul Bissonnette in the post-game interview saying that they had belief, and then saying that he grew up a Maple Leafs fan and loves playing against them, this guy absolutely knows that he is digging the knife in a little bit deeper with those saying, oh, the Leafs are a really good team. It's just so hard to win here with the fans. Because he knows damn well if he was wearing that Maple Leaf, he would be playing on an entirely different level than guys like Matthews, Nylander, and Marner were playing at in this series. If those core 4 players really had it in them, it would have shown up one of these times. And maybe they still would have lost because the other team just got that one extra goal. Goaltending made a difference. There was a late penalty, a late fluky play or something like that, but we would have seen it by now. Is there pressure in Toronto? Of course there is, but it's not the fans nor the media's fault that this core 4 hasn't gotten it done for the Maple Leafs. The only person they have to blame is staring right back at them in the mirror.